Hey, what's up, guys? Corey here. Welcome back to Reese Motorsports, Corey's Garage, and your home for the Franken 7 Drift Car Project. Wanted to do something a little different tonight due to the last couple of videos and kind of hitting a little roadblock with the first startup attempts. I was kind of starting to lose a little motivation with this project. I don't know if that's ever happened to you, but you get all excited, you start diving into a project, you start hitting these roadblocks, and then you start thinking negatively, like, I'm going to sell this piece of crap, or I'm going to see if I can trade it. And I've been guilty of that the last few days. Today, I've been guilty of that. Looking at different cars to maybe trade that already ran and drive and don't really need anything and just drive it and enjoy it. But I've come too far to give up now. I'm very, very fickle when it comes to stuff like that, but I try to stick to my guns and I've committed to it, so I'm going to do it. So to get myself remotivated, or to stay motivated, I thought I would do just kind of a quick little practice build breakdown. So if I ever make it out to Hoonigan out in California or something like that with this car, or LS Fest or something, I want to at least kind of have something practiced that sounds a little bit better than just rolling off my tongue. So this is just kind of a pretend for fun build breakdown of the car as if it were completed and running, and smile on my face. So this is my 1986 Mazda RX-7. I bought it as a complete roller, meaning it still had the engine, still had the transmission, still had full interior, everything was stock. It did not run. The previous owner tried to replace the fuel pump and get it running again, but it had been sitting in a barn somewhere in central Indiana for 10 years or so, and became some nice little barn mice. Anyways, it had mice, turds, and not too many chewed up wires, and a couple of rust holes in the floor. So fixed all that. My original plan was to just kind of maybe rebuild the 13B rotary, do a half bridge, and just kind of have a clean, simple, kind of stock looking build, maybe with some nice wheels and, a paint job. Well, that spiraled out of control, as you can see, as you well know, into a Frankenstein, if you will. And I have since dubbed the car the Franken 7 Project. The reason I call it that is because it's got I think it's a 2004 or 2005 L33 aluminum 5.3 liter LS based truck engine that I have tried to dumb down in a sense to like LS1 specs as far as wiring and the way things are set up. So starting with the engine, again, it's a L33 aluminum 5.3. Out of the box, I think it's supposed to be like 315 horse and 300 torque or something. But I've changed it a little bit. I got the engine as a typical Craigslist $500 junkyard pull, essentially. That was a full running engine, at least from what they said. It had all the accessories. It was a drive-by-wire system, and it was a DOD engine, which is like a fuel saver mode. So anyways, basically it's been changed a lot. It's got an LS6 intake manifold. I've got a Flowtech high lift, way bigger of a cam than a 5.3 should probably have, at least one with no boost. It's got LS7 lifters, trunnion upgraded rockers, a little bit longer chromoly push rods, LS2 timing chain, and I think that's it as far as like internal mods. Externally, like I said, LS6 intake. It's a eBay truck cool air intake kit that's pretty much just two 4-inch rubber boots and a huge filter, and I'll probably change that later, but for now that's what I've got, so that's what I'm going with. It's got used SLP long tube headers for a F-body Camaro that I had to modify a little bit to fit with my I've got a Z32 transmission in this, and the starter faces the rear instead of the front like an LS. So the passenger side is really tight, and I had to bang on the primaries to get that to fit. So the two are connected via a G-Force transmission adapter kit, which is basically a adapter plate that bolts onto the LS block, and then the Z32 transmission bolts up to that. It comes with a custom-made flywheel that accepts either a NA or a TT 300ZX style clutch. It also has a custom pilot bearing to mate the two, and a new throwout bearing. Shifter is a Megan Racing short throw shifter, connected or adapted, I should say, with a Megan Racing, or I'm sorry, an LOJ shifter relocation for an S13 240SX with the Z32 trans, and actually lines up pretty well perfect. I did have to cut a little bit of sheet metal out of the way, but I'm pretty happy with how it worked out. It's a custom one-piece drive shaft from a local drive shaft shop called, I think it's just Indiana Driveline in Cherville, Indiana. And the rear end has been changed to a Turbo 2 rear end with the matching axles, and it's a 410 or 411 rear end gear. I've also got a lot of LS1 stuff, like F-body Camaro alternator, water pump, oil pan. It's got an improved racing oil pan baffle kit, so it's got like the little trap doors in there to help with oil starvation, and just a Wix LS1. Actually, it's probably a LS3 oil filter. I didn't realize they changed the splines on the oil filter, but that's just a little, not a big deal. It's got brand new eBay, nice upgraded coils, wires, wire protectors, all new sensors as far as like oil pressure sensor, coolant temp sensor, throttle position sensor, air inlet temperature sensor, not idle air control. Let's see, map sensor, pretty much everything, I think, but the LS coolant temp sensor is a brand new sensor on this thing. So hopefully it'll all be reading correctly. I ran into some issues with some of the wiring. It's an eBay knockoff China harness. It's modeled after the PSI harnesses. They're supposed to be really, really good, but this one was like $268, I think. I had to do a little changes to it as far as add some grounds, extend some wires, extend the knock sensors, just a few little changes, nothing too crazy. And I found a helpful video the other day that would help with the map sensor and the tack signal wire. So found a nice write-up on Granny Speed Shop website on how to make the RX-7 gauges work. So so far the oil pressure gauge works. The water temp gauge should work now. I haven't got the engine to start yet, so I can't test if the tack works or not, but it's supposed to according to this write-up. And the fuel level I haven't got to work correctly yet, so I will probably have to tinker with that a little bit. But the only thing that wasn't going to work, just due to my transmission and all that, is the speedometer. So I've actually got a GPS powered speedometer that has a little GPS antenna right there, and just kind of had to crudely mount it to the factory gauge cluster with some like conduit hanger stuff, but I think it turned out pretty good. The seat and mounting bracket is from Corbeau. It's a Corbeau Forza Sports seat. It's a FIA approved like road race seat, fixed back, and it was FIA approved until I think this past November. So I don't plan on doing any crazy road racing or anything like that, but I did want to use this seat because I've had this seat since 2014 when I had my Hyundai Genesis Coupe, and only got one drift event out of it and then blew the engine in that. So I've been hanging on to this seat for like 6 years, and I can finally have it in a car. It's got Tanaka harnesses, which are fairly decent for eBay harnesses. Eventually I'll probably upgrade those to Takata, which is what I really wanted. And I would really like a bride or brid, however you say it, driver's seat, and then I'll move this one over to the passenger side eventually. I do have an ASD style hydraulic handbrake that works the rear brakes for drifting purposes. The master cylinder for the brakes, the port for the rear has been blocked off, so the pedal only actuates the front brakes. So it's kind of like a line lock, but apparently that helps with left foot braking. Clutch is a stage 3 XTD clutch off eBay, but I used that same clutch in my old RB20 swap S14 back in the day, and had really good luck with it. So I went with that. It was like $150 and came with a new throwout bearing and really decent clutch for the money. It's sitting on max speeding rod, 24-way dampening adjustable coilovers. Also a eBay product. Some people bash it, but this is a project build, and I'm married with a child and a house, and you gotta do what you gotta do, and you gotta do with what, you know, gotta make the most with what you have. So yes, BC Racing would be awesome, or Fortune, or anyone, but for the money, I think these were under $200, and it's low, and it can go way lower, except for my exhaust. With the long tube headers especially, you run into clearance issues as far as living the low life. So I got it as low as it can functionally sit. Gets rid of the fender gap. I made my own custom 3-inch exhaust. I cut off the old flanges for the headers and welded on some V-bands. So I got just a custom little Y pipe, a resonator, and my wife bought me a muffler a couple of years ago that I finally got to use. So it's a custom 3-inch exhaust, single exit that I made myself here laying on the ground in my garage, and it turned out pretty well. I think we'll see how it holds up when the car actually runs, but yeah, I basically just built this car just for a fun weekend toy, essentially. You know, if the daily ever gives me issues, something I could drive to work, but you know, it definitely won't be a winter car by any means, just because there's no heat, no AC, no wipers, no radio. It does have manual windows though, manual locks, which is nice, because a lot of times these GXL trim model cars had power, all that stuff, and the power window switch does fail. And it's really expensive to get another switch, or you can rewire some resistors or something and make it work. But I didn't want to go down that road, and I'm happy to have my roll-up windows. I think it does have a power sunroof, but I will probably not use it too much. I do kind of wish it was a slick top car, no sunroof, just because I'm not that tall. I'm 5'11", and in this racing seat, my head almost touches the ceiling. It's pretty tall, and that's with the lowest bracket I could get by with and the lowest sliders I could find. So the only other option is removing the seat bracket and just putting the sliders on the floor, and some people do that. I don't know how that would work, but if I have to do that later, I will. But I like having a little adjustability right now. It's got a brand new Exidy slave cylinder and clutch master cylinder. A braided stainless line for the clutch, and a custom hard line from the master to that line, and then it's got braided brake lines all the way around. Power stop, slotted and drilled brake rotors, upgraded pads front and rear, new rear wheel bearings, mostly solid rear bushings. The only ones I didn't get were the actual front diff mount and the rear diff mounts, because I figured with everything else is solidly mounted, it needs a little bit of give for the drivetrain so it doesn't shock it too bad. But if it turns into an issue, I'll try to swap those out for solids later. But I forgot the name of the company. The dude's in Canada. He makes the DTSS or rear steer eliminators for these, as well as the trailing arm bushings and basically lower control arm bushings. So mostly solid rear bushings. So this thing should drift a lot better than my first RX-7. My first RX-7 was rough. It did have a limited slip, but it was wore out, and I didn't know anything about the rear steer. I didn't even know that was a thing until like last year for these cars. I knew some 240s and 300ZXs had the super hikes, But this is a little bit different than that, since this is a semi trailing arm in the rear car. But yeah, I mean, it's a pretty nice car. The body was pretty straight. I did have a little bit of rust repair, like I said, in the passenger and driver's floorboard. But the fender wells are nice. The trunk is nice. There's a little surface rust on the sunroof. Probably one of my favorite features about this car, if you can even see it, is the factory duckbill spoiler. I love that. It's so cool. It kind of is reminiscent of the 944 Porsche or 928, but I think it looks a lot better. And then, of course, every FC guy would love to have some S5 taillights, which I do not, but these have all LED bulbs in there, and they work nice, and they look nice, and I'm pretty pleased with that so far. It is a Granny Speed Shop used engine swap cradle, essentially. Found a great deal on that. It's been a couple of years now, but found that on Facebook RX-7 page. I made my own custom transmission mount, so I was pretty proud of that. That was fun to make. A lot of work, though, for just a piece of metal, but it was pretty fun. I'm not a fabricator, but I pulled it off all right, I think. Interior has been fully stripped, besides the dash, the upper door panels, the A-pillars, the headliner, and the B-pillars. LRB Speed provided the aluminum door skins as well as the B-pillar skins. All the sound deadening's been removed. That was a pain. And yeah, just kind of bare bones, basic drift car, somewhat hopefully street legal setup in here. But the whole point of the build was to keep it simple, keep it clean, do as much of it as myself as I could, and I think I pulled that off pretty well, and pretty proud of it so far. So it's not much to some people, but it's a lot to me. It's got me through some hard times this year. 2020 has been rough on pretty much everybody, and this has been my little nugget to kind of help get me through some hard times this year. So I'm very thankful for it, and I hope that it runs very soon. I was off the whole month of May, and just for preventive quarantine, if you will. So half of it was paid, the other half I had to eat, but that's okay. I'm glad that it worked out with work. So I did most of the assembly of this car this past May. I've had the car since October 2017, so it really didn't get much done other than like the engine bay painted, the sound deadening removed, repaired the rust areas, and just testing the spray paint colors I have. One fender's white, one fender's blue, and the headlight covers are blue. And just, slowly accrued some parts. I think I held on to that radiator for a year or two, and I've had the engine, I think, since 2018 sometime. I've had the engine cradles since a little bit after that, and had the transmission since 2018 sometime. So I've had a lot of these parts for a while, and it's good to finally have them put together. Obviously the car's not done, but it's really, really close. It's one of those things where, like, I just got to get the right combination of a couple of things, and hopefully it'll be running and it'll be a beast. So, I wanted to build a simple, clean, low maintenance, low worry, fun weekend, street car that occasionally sees some drift duty. Aesthetic wise, I wanted to keep it pretty era correct. It does have the S5 RX-7 front bumper, and the the wheels are what I like to call the poor man's Advans. They're sanded, clean, painted 94, 95 Mustang GT wheels. They're very lightweight, 17 by 8, and I do have 3/4 inch spacers on the rear. The tires, I kind of jumped the gun. I was being a little cheap. They're brand new tires. They're Lexanis. They're made by Nexen, and I think I got all 4 shipped to the house for like $188. But I got 215 45s, and I should have at least got like 235 45s or something, because they're pretty skinny. So the rears might not last that long, but I will get a wider set next time. And I think that's all I got for right now. So I know you've seen the car on the other videos. This is just kind of another little angle, my little home garage. My toolboxes are a mess right now. I need to spend a day just cleaning everything, organizing it, throwing out the trash. I did have a huge pile of boxes of parts, and there's basically nothing left but the hood pins, which, as you can see, the hood's not even on it. So I think the only part that's sitting over there is that I still have to put on the car is the hood pins, are the hood pins. I've been running into some issues with it not starting yet. It's getting too much fuel and it's drowning the spark plugs in raw fuel. So the Corvette fuel regulator and filter combo is being overpowered by my 340 liter per hour fuel pump. So I've got an adjustable fuel pressure regulator on the way, and I've got C6 Corvette cam and crank position sensors. The front should be okay. The cam sensor should be okay, but the crank sensor is not communicating correctly with this wiring harness because it's an LS1 style harness. So the plug is right, but the signal is not being picked up correctly. So I have just the cheapest LS1 crank position sensor I could find from Rock Auto. That's on the way. Hopefully that'll be here tomorrow or the next day, and hopefully maybe that will be the missing link that actually gets this thing to run. So yeah, so I guess look for some updates in the following days. Like I said, this was just kind of a practice rundown of a build breakdown. Hopefully this engine is going to look a lot better here soon. I switched the banks around as far as the wiring harness, just trying to diagnose why it's not running. I don't think it made much of a difference. I hope that's not how it has to work, because that is ugly how it's sitting in there. So hopefully I can flip it back around and kind of tuck the wires and make it look nice again. But yeah, that's all I got for right now. You guys take care. We might try something new tomorrow. We might bring a new segment onto the channel, just car talk, and maybe even turn it into a car dad talk, because there's some fun things in this life of being a car guy and being a father as well. So my little man is he's definitely trying to follow in my footsteps. He loves Jeep rods and he loves monster trucks. So he's only 2 now, so it's a long time before we talk about a vehicle for him. But I do have aspirations to build a Jeep rod for him, which would basically probably be a YJ or TJ Jeep chassis, maybe with a LS, maybe with a rotary, who knows, for his first car. So we'll see. That's a long ways away, so we'll see what happens. But you guys take care. We'll talk to you soon.